Now we come on to item 8B, libraries. Proposer, Councillor Tony Edwards, seconded, Councillor Jodie Dunn. Councillor Edwards.
First of all, I'd just like to move a small but important amendment, under which it reads, this council notes that, and then small figure 1, Essex County Council, and it should then read, have not adequately responded to the letter of concern. They have responded, but in our view, not adequately.
Is everybody happy with that? Okay, agreed. Okay, thank you. Councillor Edwards, would you like to carry on?
Councillors will recall...
Seconded for this.
Councillor Dunn.
Okay, thank you.
Councillors will recall the council meeting of the 18th of December, where we unanimously agreed that the council leader and the opposition leader would jointly write to County Councillor Barker, Essex County Council's portfolio holder, expressing our shared concern about potential library closures and requesting a meeting. Councillor Mark Ingle and Councillor Andrew Johnson jointly wrote 2 eloquent letters, the first on the 7th of January and the second on the 7th of March. But as yet, there's not been an adequate reply to the points made. Neither has there been a response from Councillor Barker to the request for a meeting, other than to say that such a request should come from county councillors. Councillors and the public may also be aware that following receipt of a petition from over 57,000 Essex residents, Essex County Council held an extraordinary general meeting on the 10th of March. What you may not know is that during the 3-hour debate, over 40 county councillors from all over Essex spoke, some for the motion, some against, but all with a passion for their libraries. But not one of Harlow's county councillors spoke. Shame. It was as if Harlow didn't exist.
Shame. Councillors, thank you.
I could understand them opposing the motion, but to say nothing at all about the potential plight of the libraries in our town, when we could lose 3 out of 5 libraries, arguably defies belief. I hope they will be willing to share their views with us in this debate. Now, some figures to give the context to the debate. These are not my figures, they are the county's figures. In 2011, the Essex County Council library budget was 25.5 million. In 2018-19, it is 12.9 million, a reduction of approximately 50%, significantly more if you take into account inflation. So what has been the specific impact on the Harlow? It has resulted in a 45% drop in the number of books available. 2007 and 8, it was 127,000. It is now 57,600. The total number of library hours has also dropped from opening hours from 182 to 150, a 17.6% reduction. So it cannot then be a surprise that book borrowing has reduced. If you'll excuse the pun, it's the oldest trick in the book. First the county council run a service down, and then they say people aren't using it. And to exaggerate the deceit, they also fail to record all of the alternatives but complementary ways people are still continuing to use the service. And then, to add insult to injury, they devise a flawed weighting process which arguably fails to take sufficiently into account deprivation, numeracy and literacy indicators. And ultimately, they arrive at a situation whereby they propose to potentially close 2 Tier 4 libraries, Mark Hall and Ty Green. Ty Green, by the way, is the 3rd most used library in the town and has the highest percentage of aged under 19 users. And Great Parndon, the 2nd most used library in the town, they downgrade to a Tier 3 community library, which will only survive if a partner can be found to host a significantly reduced stock, take on any revenue costs and provide the necessary volunteers. It will run on even less hours and there will be no computers or other technological support supplied by the county.
Councillor Edwards, could you start winding down?
I am winding down. Again, it defies belief. Nevertheless, the County Council are pressing on with that agenda, which will mean that instead of having a properly staffed library for every 17.5 thousand population, we could have one for every 43,000 population. As we as District Council are not statutorily responsible for this service, we must nevertheless continue to advocate on behalf of Harlow residents, because of the potential social, educational and economic impact these service cuts will have throughout the town, to say nothing of the health and well-being agenda to which the county subscribes. So this resolution asks, and this is the final paragraph, so this resolution asks that we again write to express our concerns. It urges all councillors to sign the letter and support this motion and the council's previously agreed position, and for those district councillors who are also Essex County councillors to do likewise when the matter comes before them for a decision. Thank you.
Councillor Edwards. Councillor Dunn, do you want to reserve your right to speak, or do you want to speak now?
I'll reserve my right.
Thank you. Councillor Edwards.
I'd like to say I'm very happy to support this motion tonight. And of course, Councillor Edwards said that the Harlow County Council didn't say anything in the chamber. Well, we all know that mostly the chamber is theatre, and the work gets done behind the scenes, whether people like that or not. I and my fellow colleagues have had 2 meetings with the Cabinet Member for Libraries because we're that concerned. We have lobbied the Cabinet Member. We have now got another meeting booked with her on the 14th of May because we're still concerned. Having said all of that, as we all know in this room tonight, Essex County Council have declared that they've got 22,000 pieces of paper back from all sorts in Essex to say what they think about their libraries and what they feel Essex County Council should do to give a full and comprehensive service. They are wading through that at this moment in time. I know that, yes, because I'm a county councillor, and they won't have an answer till probably June because they don't want to make any mistakes with the fully comprehensive service. And as for me, Councillor Edwards, as members will or will not be aware in this chamber, there is a long-standing convention at Essex County Council that the chairman and vice chairman do not participate in political discourse during their term of office, remaining the independent arbiters of the business in the chamber. And he knows at the moment, as a Harlow councillor, I'm the vice chairman of Essex at the moment. However, be assured that the work goes on behind the scenes outside of the theatre, or the chamber, as we like to call it. And I'm proud that I have put petitions in front of that on behalf of my local schools, and anyone that's written to me, I have forwarded that email on and had responses from that and put them back. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Garnett.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I thank Councillor Edwards for his most eloquent speech, although he gets a lot of the facts wrong. If he remembers rightly, on the 18th of December at the meeting here, I made it quite clear of my opposition to any closures and my groups, not my groups, but our opposition to it. So to keep regurgitating lies is not correct, it's not right. This is a consultation as well. It's still this consultation is finished as such, but the results haven't been known. So we can't make any decisions until we know what the results of the consultation, as Councillor Johnson just said. Anyway, I'll go on from there. I strongly believe that the leader of this council has a duty to enter into a meaningful and constructive dialogue with Essex County Council over the matter, despite the consultation is closed. The leader and his group need to get off their protest mode and engage, not to protest with no ideas, but as I've said, meaningful and constructive dialogue with the leader of Essex County Council or Councillor Susan Barker over the future of Harlow's Library Service Committee. Instead of protesting, use the time to put forward some constructive, alternative proposals for a modern, fit and purposeful library service that Harlow and Essex can be proud of. Have you contacted schools, voluntary groups, possibly formed a community trust? There are various solutions that could work. I would like to put one forward. Over the past few years, this council has been squirreling away large sums of taxpayers' money. Yes, it's the taxpayers at Harlow's whose money this is. 14 million is now stuffed in our reserves. Residents may well ask, why does Harlow Council need reserves of this magnitude? Only they can answer. My suggestion is quite simple. Why does this council not use some of these reserves to help maintain or modernise Harlow's library service? If needed, because the result of the consultation is not yet known. But what is known is that one of the library premises in Harlow, the Stowe, is owned by Harlow Council, and Essex County Council Library Services are charged £13,000 a year for the use of these premises, plus rates. Why not come to an arrangement whereby these premises are rented at a peppercorn rate? That may well secure the library for the future. Madam Chair, other district councils declared an interest in running the whole of their library service. So why not Harlow? So, Councillor England, I ask that some of the taxpayers' money be used to support our library service, which will benefit all of the residents in Harlow. So come on, Councillor England, get off the streets of protest and into the real world, which is collaboration, not confrontation. We may not be shouting and protesting, but we have been lobbying the Cabinet portfolio holder and a meeting with Councillor Susan Barker in early May. Councillor Johnson has already said this. I will continue to lobby on behalf of Harlow's library service in a considered and constructive manner.
Councillor Mason.
Firstly, I make no apology that I have been on the streets of Harlow and on the streets of Chelmsford and attended at least 2 public meetings because personally I wanted to engage with the families and the children, and I spoke to reams and reams of children that came up to us and told us what they felt about the loss of the libraries. So I make no apology for that at all, because actually we were visible, and what was not visible, I'm afraid to say, despite all the assurances tonight, was the alternative parties, apart from one public meeting, as I understand. But as Councillor Edwards said, this is, you know, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy, isn't it? A number of years ago, you stop providing the books, you mess around with the hours and the days, and gradually, people become less interested in attending, and, when they arrive, it's closed. So it's not a surprise, really. And don't forget, this is, we are paying council tax, and Essex County Council have a proportion of that money that actually is for libraries. So before we start raising the kind of 17% of what we have in Harlow, let's look at what Essex County Council should be doing. And this is all in the backdrop, I'm afraid to say, of austerity, because let's not forget, actually, as I've repeated many times, come from criminal justice background, it was Chris Grayling that denied prisoners' books. We want to rehabilitate people. Thank goodness Mr. Gove actually turned that one around. We're seeing the sort of effects of academisation. I went past Ty Green Library the other week and was really excited to see 3 classrooms of children coming out of the library, because this is an essential part of the education of our children. Have we forgotten that? We knock on the door in Todbrook, the Todbrook Ward, Westfield, and the parents are saying, well, actually, I know, because my children at the school take them to join the library, and yet we're thinking about changing all of that. So, there's lots I could say about this. We've mentioned previously about the fact that people that are on benefits, that haven't got Wi-Fi, they haven't got smartphones, that have to actually go and register their claims. Some families have to register for school dinners. A lot of that has been said before. But actually, I'm afraid to say, you know, personally, I feel you may be saying grand things and doing things behind doors, but actually it's completely out of touch with what's going on in the streets. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I wasn't planning on speaking tonight, but I was just so gobsmacked by the comments from Councillor Garlick. So I had to say something. The definition of what the councils do in a two-tier, which is complicated enough for our residents, about what local district councils deliver and what county councils deliver, is complex. I would hope that someone that serves on both would understand it. But apparently not. Harlow Council, with Labour administrations, work really hard to have stable finances, to not have to cut services. Right. If the Tories at County Hall can't do the same, and the only ideas their representatives from Harlow have is go begging the district council, which is struggling to pay for what we do as we do under your Tory cuts from government, then what's the point in you? And what's the point in Tory County Council? You clearly can't run the government, we can see that. You can't run the county council. Step aside and let a Labour administration do it.
Councillor Burton.
Everyone's read all my notes.
Thank you, Chair. I too, like Tony, attended the meeting of Essex County Council and heard quite a good debate. Actually, there wasn't one word from the Harlow councillors. Sorry, there were two words, yes and yes. Yes to defeat the opposition motion opposing the closures of libraries, and yes to go down some other route which was unclear. The only other thing, I like Emma, wasn't going to get up. This is Essex County Council's balance on the 31st of March 2018 for reserves, their reserve statement. How much have they actually got in reserves? 1,193,265,000 £. For those who didn't quite hear that, 1,193,265,000. That's how much Essex's financial statement for the balances on the 31st of March 2018 exposed the whole situation. This is an authority that refused to increase the council tax for 5 years. They missed out on 80 to 100 million pounds over that time. Now our social services are in a state, our highways are in a state, and they can't even keep our libraries open. It's a disgrace, Chair.
Councillor Harbour.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've listened to all your negativity. A lot of assumptions. Broadly, as your motion says.
Councillor Harbour, it's Chair, not Madam Chair. Thank you.
Sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry. As your motion says, no decisions have been made. And the consultation's only just finished, and the results of it have not been announced yet. I note the comment that we have not been visible. Well, that's probably right. We don't shout about what we're up to. We don't put it on social media. If we do, we get trolled by the Labour Party. So that's why we don't do it. But I can say that I view this whole issue as an opportunity. I've been ignoring the negativity. I see that this is an opportunity to look at our library services and do something for the future. And I've been working with my county council colleagues, and we've come up with numerous options that could be considered, which is one of the reasons why we're meeting the cabinet member next month. We're going to come up with a strategic and sustainable solution which will hopefully retain all of the libraries in Harlow. But not just retain them, make them much better. Now, I don't see any suggestions or solutions coming from the Labour Party at all. And I do get upset with being criticised for not being visible and not doing anything, when blatantly, obviously, I am. I've been visiting schools, I've been visiting all the libraries, I've been talking to residents, I've been talking to residents' associations. So please cut criticism.
Okay. I think Councillor Vince.
Yeah, I'll make this very quick. I'm a member of the Labour Party that gets more troll on social media than does the trolling. I think that's fair to say. I'm not making cheap shots. The only real feedback I wanted to give the council on the other side of the room. A lot of you have mentioned the consultation. I mention this a lot. I know. I'm a maths teacher, and one of my big bugbears is what I call biased questionnaires. I wouldn't say this, well, it's not so much that the biased nature of the questionnaire, I just think the questionnaire wasn't really fit for purpose. I think it was very, very overly complicated, unnecessarily complicated. I think the questions kind of bundled answers together, and it made it very difficult. And the feedback I've got when I do go out camping and talk to people about libraries is that actually they found it very, very difficult to fill out. So I would say that I'm a little concerned when we do get the results of the consultation, what the results of the consultation actually tell us and how accurate those are. So I would really ask, and if Essex County Council want somebody who to overlook over their questionnaires when they put them out, I'd love to do that. But you'd have to pay me too much. So yeah, just if you could pass that on, because I think that's a big issue.
Councillor Charles.
Thank you, Chair. I'm nice to support my county councillor colleagues who have spoken very clearly tonight for their support for our library service in this town. What I think is really important is to strip this debate right back down to some of the basic principles. Clearly, and I would be the first to argue this, that when you look at the legislation that underpins statutory library provision, it needs to be updated, it needs to change. The Public Libraries and Museum Act is not fit for purpose, and it should beef up the powers given to local authorities to ensure that library provision is maintained in all parts of the country. But we're here tonight to discuss Harlow libraries. And as I said in the debate at previous full council, I used to study in the old Harlow Library for my exam finals. I think library provision in this town is crucial, particularly for those individuals that live in low-income families, have not got access to internet, but use the library as a tool to look into the outside world. It also is an important gateway for young children to go and learn to read, pick up fiction, pick up some history, and actually learn about their surroundings and the history of this country and other parts of the world. It's a valuable service. It is something that all of the county councillors and all of the councillors, the Conservative councillors, cherish. And so that's why our county councillors have been working behind the scenes and have a follow-up meeting with Councillor Sue Barker, who needs to listen very carefully to the concerns across this town about library provision. I'm someone who was born and bred in this town. I know my friends and my family have used these libraries for decades. I'm not someone who would negate my responsibility as a district councillor to champion them. And I think that's important to stress tonight. But this administration has got to come to the party. It's got to be more constructive with Essex County Council. Protests only achieve a certain amount. What you need to do is put forward options and actually get into the debate with Essex County Council. Because let's face it, this is a consultation, no decisions have been made, and actually what we're hearing tonight across the board is a groundswell of support for library provision. But there's a future prospect here of some exciting new opportunities. I want our library service to be an important community hub. In other parts of the country, models have been executed to make sure that library provision is at the source of local communities. And that's what we cherish about our libraries, because it allows people a gateway to learn to read. It allows people to access the internet and see the outside world, as I've stressed earlier. I hope that we can ground this debate in some actual facts. This is a consultation, this administration's got to come to the party, but this group here tonight is in favour of our library provision and will fight for it in whatever means are necessary.
Councillor Dunn and then Councillor.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, Councillor Joel there, Charles, has just almost stolen all of my thunder. So that's the problem of having a very good deputy. The position of the Conservative group in Harlow, indeed the position of the Conservative Party in Harlow, has been very clear on libraries all the way along. And it makes me angry, actually, when I've heard reports that certain members opposite have been telling members of the public that the Conservatives in Harlow want to close libraries. Let me say clearly here, that is not true. Harlow Conservatives want to see all of Harlow's libraries stay open.
Yes.
Stop and wait for a second there so that everyone sinks in. And just to reinforce that, we've had an M. Sorry, what were you saying?
Councillors.
Yeah, Councillor Dan was typical to you trying to interrupt me again. You always do it.
Councillor Johnson, carry on.
Thank you, Chair. We've had an MP, a Conservative MP of the town, Robert Halfon, who has raised the issue of libraries since the County Council announced their consultation multiple times in Parliament, multiple times in questions in Parliament, multiple times in parliamentary debates, seeking to show his support for Harlow libraries. Our group, at the December meeting, was so keen to show our support for the libraries that we asked for the amendment to include it to be a joint letter between Councillor Ingle and myself. A letter which actually I'm very angry hasn't been adequately responded to by colleagues at County Pool. They may wear the same political colour as me, that doesn't mean I have to support everything they do. And I don't always support everything they do. I'm angry that Councillor Barker's view is that a meeting between the leader of a district council in Essex and his opposition leader to show how important it is cross-party to the council has not been accepted. Because it should be booked via a county councillor. For God's sake, when a leader of a council writes to a county councillor, cabinet member, it should be answered and an offer of a meeting should be accepted. Again, we're happy to sign up to this motion tonight. I'm advising all of my members here to vote for it. I want to keep all of Harlow's libraries open. What I don't want to hear after this debate, again, is more rubbish out on the streets when I'm campaigning, that people from other parties have told them that's not the case and the Conservatives in Harlow aren't supporting libraries. We may have a very different style of campaigning on political issues to the party opposite. We may not be particularly used to wandering the streets with placards. I've never actually done it. I don't actually want to wander the street with a placard. But for those that do, I pay absolute tribute to you. If you want to wave your placards, that's great. And it's a wonderful way to engage in political discourse. I prefer to have private meetings and conversations with people and show them the support that I have for our libraries. And again, if the leader thinks it would be useful for the follow-up letter to come from the pair of us, not just himself, I'm happy to offer to sign that letter with him to show that there continues to be cross-party support in Harlow about this issue. That being said, Chair, as we pointed out, this is still a consultation. The consultation results, as we've been told tonight, are not likely to be out till June. I hope very much that the consultation results, which came from across the county, will be of such a magnitude and that County Council will take on the opposition that's been made to their proposals by district councils across the county and by Conservative members as well as Labour members across the county, will lead them to say that the consultation has led to the fact that no library should close. I really hope that's the outcome. But until we get to the point that the consultation has actually been announced, the details of the consultation have been announced, this moment in time, no one in this room knows what county's proposals are. And whilst I understand there's a local election looming and the Labour Party want to scream and shout about something to do with nasty Tories, they're often doing that, we don't know what the outcome will be yet. So we can't say a county are trying to close the libraries. They have asked whether they should. Resoundingly, I'm hearing from the public up and down the county that they shouldn't. And I hope that the County Council administration listens.
Thank you, Chair. I'd like to start off by thanking the members of the Save Our Libraries Essex group for turning up. I know us from this side are thankful that you're here and thankful that you're out protesting to save the libraries. Thank you for all your contributions. It hasn't told me anything I don't already know from the people opposite, I'm afraid. The listing of library uses doesn't count mother and baby groups, the jobless, those on low wages, school meal applicants, the list goes on and on. These people use the computer services and own the taking out books is counted. The aforementioned is disproportionately the poorer in our society. So what I think this looks like is little more than a Tory attack on their ideological enemy, the poor. It's the same old story. It's the same old Tories. Who's dropping who now? The campaign to save our libraries goes on, helped by Sol, who are here tonight. I'm not going to disrespect you, don't worry. This is bringing together people across Essex and beyond in opposition to what is a heartless Conservative policy of cultural vandalism. But what I'll do is I'll finish with a question. If the members opposite are so against the cuts, and let's say the cuts inflicted by their government, which have cut spending to councils by over 50%, do they ever wonder if they're in the wrong party?
No.
Councillor Ingle.
Thank you, Chair. It may surprise some of the councillors opposite to know that I did meet Councillor Barker. I met before the December meeting here in this chamber, and I found her to be woefully ignorant of the services that libraries already provide, and to have quite a tin ear. She was surprised when I spoke to her about computer usage. She was surprised when I mentioned pupils using libraries as quiet areas to study. When Councillor Charles said he used to do that, that wouldn't count in this consultation. You don't exist in this consultation. Your usage, gone. School usage, yes, I have spoken to schools, and they do use it. Doesn't count in this consultation. The consultation is fundamentally flawed because it only looked at a small part of the usage, the existing usage of libraries, book withdrawals, and we already know that the number of books on the shelves has been massively reduced, and the hours available to take those books out has been massively reduced. Councillor Garnett. Well, you are seriously suggesting that Harlow residents should pay twice to keep the libraries open. We already pay. We already pay 85% of our council tax to Essex to provide services. We've had Councillor Hardware suggest we should pay twice for our roads this evening. And of course we're already paying twice for our street lights. This is absolutely the issue that Councillor Danvers rose when he said this is the inevitable consequence of austerity. An ideological austerity that is wholly unnecessary. It's all very well Councillor Johnson or Councillor Charles talking about our MP Halfon voicing his concern about libraries being closed in the House when he has voted consistently again and again and again to cut the public purse. So, in conclusion, we've heard our Tory Essex County councillors say they're happy to support this motion tonight. Good, thank you. We've heard that they've lobbied behind the scenes. We've heard that they've spoken to people. But here's a really, really important question. Will you vote to keep our libraries open when the question comes to Essex County Council? Because that's really where you're putting your money where your mouth is. Thank you.
Would you like to sum up, please?
First of all, I'd just like to respond to one point that was made by Councillor Garnett when he called me a liar. I'm afraid there is absolutely nothing in what I have said that is a lie. Thank you. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for the apology. That being said that, I've been to a certain extent reassured by the debate this evening. My final paragraph when I was opening, which I wasn't able to get to because of the time limit, was throughout the debate I was going to say I would like an assurance that all of Harlow's county councillors, having previously voted unanimously for the motion in this district council, will now advocate publicly and vigorously for the retention of all the existing libraries and work to ensure that they are adequately resourced and staffed by qualified librarians. That's the model that we want to use. Councillor Hardware's comment about it being an opportunity. Yes, of course it is an opportunity. but there are some basic lines to be drawn. One of them is that they are staffed by qualified librarians, that they're not staffed by volunteers. I see them as being primarily staffed by volunteers. That's the model that they've put forward. Now, if you're going to, if the starting position is, no, what we want to do is continue to maintain our libraries, maintain the professionalism that's within the libraries, and then look at the way that we can expand their use and expand their community involvement, then of course we want to have discussions with you and have discussions with the county council. And one of the things I would say to the county councillors is, given, and I totally share what Andrew said in terms of the response to Councillor Barker when she said, no, you have to put the request in via a county councillor. I mean, you know, this is the leader and the leader of the opposition of a district council here that she's talking to. So one of the things that the county council could, because I do think there is some mileage in having a meeting. Yes, there is going to be different models and different, but we need to get across, and I recognise the passion that you've shown tonight in terms of saying that you want to preserve the libraries, just as we want to preserve and strengthen the libraries. So I think there is potentially some meeting ground in us going, we may well have slightly different models, but there may well be some potential meeting ground and us jointly going forward and saying to Essex County Council, you know, what you are proposing in your model for Tier 3 and Tier 4 libraries is not appropriate, and it certainly isn't appropriate for this town, given the levels of literacy, given the levels of numeracy, given the poverty levels, and given the deprivation levels. So in some ways, although it's been an interesting debate, I actually think it's been a useful debate, because the public have heard where you stand on the libraries. They already know where we stand on that, to think that they know where we stand on the libraries. So perhaps together, in terms of going to the county council, and you know, yes, you've had your discussions now with the county, you've behind the scenes discussions with the county council. Now's the time to actually start involving, you know, the representatives of the district council in those discussions. Because to say to us, oh, you haven't come forward with any proposals, there hasn't been the venue to come forward to those proposals, with, you know, to have those discussions. And it's about getting those discussions going. And we've got a limited amount of time, a very limited amount of time. Decisions are going to be made the first decisions are starting to be made in June.
Can you wind down, please, Mr.
So, I'll wind down by saying that I'm reassured to a certain extent by this debate, and I look forward to it moving forward now.
We'll now come to the vote on this motion with regard to the libraries. Can we have hands raised for those who are for the motion?